Council meeting for the City of Highland Park, Illinois, June 14th, 2021. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Tapia.
Present.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Here.
Councilmember Stone.
Here.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Here.
Councilmember Holloman.
Recording in progress.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Here.
Mayor Rotering.
Here, we have a quorum. Everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular City Council meeting held May 24th, 2021?
So moved. Second.
Will the clerk please call the vote to approve the minutes?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 7 ayes, no nays. The minutes are approved. Corporation Counsel Steve Elrod has something to state.
Thank you, Mayor. Perhaps for the final time, we'll see. We are meeting virtually in accordance with the Illinois Open Meetings Act. The governor and the mayor both issued the necessary or made the necessary finding. The city manager is present at City Hall, and all those who have wanted an opportunity to be heard have been given the appropriate opportunity to be heard at this public meeting.
Thank you, Corporation Counsel. Hoping to see everybody together in 2 weeks at City Hall. Thank you. Our next item is approval of the warrant list, and for that I am seeking a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Any comments or questions on the warrant list? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 7 ayes, no nays, and the warrant list is approved. Next item is report of the mayor. The city has 18 commissions, boards, and advisory groups composed of volunteer residents who provide valuable guidance to the city council. These resident volunteers are appointed by the mayor with city council consent. I have 3 recommended appointments this evening: to the Business and Economic Development Advisory Group, Erwin Bernstein; to the Transportation Advisory Group, Dan Rubin; and to the Housing Commission, Dominique Velbrun. Because of we just lost the person that I was going to ask to recuse herself. So to that end, I am seeking unanimous consent of this group of those appointments. Yes? Yes?
Best, while we're virtual, Mayor, to have a motion and a second and call the roll.
Absolutely. So to that end, I'm seeking a motion to make those appointments.
So move to approve. Sorry, Tony, go ahead, second.
Okay, will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 6 ayes, no nays, and we thank these people for volunteering their time and for their important perspectives that they'll be bringing to our boards and advisory groups and commissions. Thank you all for joining us. Continuing on with the report of the mayor, I have two proclamations this evening. I'm proud to recognize June 19, 2021 as Juneteenth National Freedom Day. Juneteenth commemorates the date in 1865 when enslaved people in Texas were finally freed from the brutal practice of slavery, some 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued by President Lincoln. Today, Juneteenth is an opportunity to reflect on the horrors of slavery, to understand and address the continued consequences of systemic racism on Black Americans and communities of color, to honor the legacies of those who continue to fight for civil rights, and to celebrate the many achievements of African Americans throughout our history. I'll now read the proclamation. Whereas for 156 years, Juneteenth National Freedom Day continues to be the oldest and most recognized African American observance in the United States. Also known as Emancipation Day, Emancipation Celebration, Freedom Day, Cell Liberation Day, Juneteenth Independence Day, Jubilee Day, and Juneteenth, Juneteenth National Freedom Day commemorates the survival of African Americans who were involuntarily brought to this country, stacked in the bottom of slave ships in a month-long journey across the Atlantic Ocean known as the Middle Passage. And whereas approximately 11.5 million African Americans survived the voyage to the New World, the number that died is likely greater, only to be subjected to whipping, castration, branding, rape, tearing apart of families, and forced to submit to slavery for more than 240 years after arrival in the United States. And despite emancipation under the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, they and their descendants still have not yet experienced full freedom for over 400 years, with many Americans failing to recognize that reality. And whereas Juneteenth commemorates the day freedom was proclaimed to all enslaved people in Texas by Union Major General Gordon Granger on June 19, 1865, in Galveston, Texas, more than 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation by President Abraham Lincoln. And whereas today, Juneteenth celebrates African American freedom and achievement while encouraging continuous self-development and respect for all cultures, and is recognized of the many contributions that African Americans have made throughout America's history and presently, both while enslaved and liberated. And whereas Americans of all colors, creeds, cultures, genders, religions, orientations, abilities, and countries of origin share in a common love of and respect for freedom, as well as a determination to protect their right to freedom. Juneteenth completes the cycle of freedom for America's Independence Day observances, recognizing that until we are all free, none of us are free. Now, therefore, I, Nancy Rotering, Mayor of the City of Highland Park, do hereby declare Saturday, June 19, 2021, as Juneteenth National Freedom Day in our city, and urge all of our residents to join us in reflecting on this historic occasion by reading the Emancipation Proclamation and singing or listening to Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and Lift Every Voice and Sing. Thank you very much. I would also like to recognize June as Immigrant Heritage Month, honoring the many contributions of immigrants whose experiences, cultures, and languages have enriched our city and our nation. In addition, we acknowledge those individuals and organizations working hard to advocate for immigrant families, ensuring that they're welcomed and supported as they build their lives here as valued members of our community. And now I'll read that proclamation. Whereas generations of immigrants from every corner of the globe have built our country's economy and created the unique character of our nation, and whereas immigrants continue to grow businesses, innovate, strengthen our economy, and create American jobs in Highland Park, Illinois, and whereas immigrants have provided the United States with unique social and cultural influence, fundamentally enriching the extraordinary character of our nation, and whereas immigrants have been tireless leaders, not only in securing their own rights and access to equal opportunity, but have also campaigned to create a fairer and more just society for all Americans. And whereas, despite these countless contributions, the role of immigrants in building and enriching our nation has frequently been overlooked and undervalued throughout our history and continuing, unfortunately, to this present day. Therefore, I, Nancy Rotering, Mayor of the City of Highland Park and the City Council of the City of Highland Park, Lake County, Illinois, do hereby designate June 2021 as Immigrant Heritage Month and encourage all residents and local businesses to recognize and appreciate the stories of immigrants and their contributions to our community. Thank you. Continuing on under other business, the last 15 months have challenged us in ways we could not have imagined. Just over a year ago, I shared my thoughts as we were embarking on a taste of normalcy after the second stay-at-home order was lifted by patronizing non-essential businesses, visiting friends and family in outdoor socially distanced settings, and discovering a renewed appreciation for the pleasures of dining al fresco. We were just getting accustomed to wearing masks, and we were learning to adjust our expectations to the new normal. We were also learning how to live with grief for loved ones who passed away, for missed experiences and celebrations, for the miles and months stretched between family and friends, for dreams, goals, and plans. Sometimes it felt as if this new normal would never again resemble the ways of life we all, to some degree, took for granted. On Friday, June 11th, Illinois entered phase 5, and the last pandemic-related state of Illinois restrictions were lifted, with the exception of those required by the CDC. It felt at once like an ordinary summer Friday and like a momentous occasion. I think we all were reminded of how far we had come. We were only able to take this step because of all of you, because of the sacrifices you've made to protect our vulnerable neighbors and each other. Over the past year, you have demonstrated why Highland Park is a place like no other. You organized food drives, checked on your neighbors, donated blood, cheered for healthcare workers and first responders, supported our local restaurants and businesses. And when the time came, you got vaccinated so we could keep our seniors and kids and other vulnerable people safe and could fully reopen our economy. Let's hold on to those things as we enjoy all of the benefits of phase 5. Let's continue to look out for our neighbors and support our local businesses. I know we all are filled with optimism as we look ahead to a post-pandemic world. If getting your COVID-19 vaccine is still on your to-do list, I urge you, make an appointment today for yourself, your family, your community. Visit cityhpil.com/vaccine to get started. City Manager Newkirk will provide additional COVID updates under the staff report, and that is it for the report of the mayor. Our next item on the agenda is business from the public. This is for citizens wishing to be heard regarding items not listed on tonight's agenda. Gita, do we have any business from the public?
Thank you, Mayor. Individuals can email us at cityhp@cityhpil.com. We have not received any emails. As Steve Elrod indicated, our doors are open at City Hall and no one is in the building other than our staff. And I'd just like to open it up. Are there any attendees that wish to address the City Council? Please raise your virtual hand and we will call on you. And I see no comments.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll continue on with scheduled business. Items 1 through 8 have been grouped together for omnibus consideration. I am seeking a motion to approve items 1 through 8.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions on items 1 through 8? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 7 ayes, no nays, and items 1 through 8 have been approved. We have no other business. Is there any business from the council? Hearing none, we'll go on to business from city staff. Gita.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Just want to continue with a couple of updates following your report. As noted, we are in phase 5, so most mask mandates have been lifted. It's nice to see the bottom half of people's faces. We are asking the public to please pay heed to any special regulations that individual businesses may have. We are asking businesses that if they are still requiring masks, then they post notice on their doors, and some businesses have chosen to do so. But as a reminder, for those that are vaccinated, they do not need to wear masks unless established by a specific business. Face coverings are required, though, and we continue to promote that face coverings are required on public transportation, in congregate facilities, and in healthcare settings. So please pay heed to that. We're promoting that regularly on our website as well as e-news. As of today, state of Illinois has administered more than 11.8 million doses of the COVID vaccine. If individuals have not received the vaccine, or you know someone affiliated with you, friend, colleague, employee, neighbor, and they would like information about the vaccine, the CDC, as well as the Illinois Department of Public Health, has really good comprehensive information about the vaccine. So we encourage people to review that and make an informed decision for themselves. And then, Mayor, as you indicated, there are a wealth of resources where people can get the vaccine. All those links are on our website. And if people have any questions or need any assistance, please give us a call at City Hall and we can help you. And that includes Lake County continues to provide vaccinations to homebound seniors and other individuals that need assistance as well. So despite the move into phase 5, Governor Pritzker's emergency order remains in effect through June 26th. This is the May 28th disaster declaration. and the Affiliated Public Act that allows municipalities to hold public meetings remotely as long as certain conditions and requirements have been met. The governor may continue to issue a disaster declaration beyond the end of this month. It's unknown at this time whether or not he will do so. But been having conversations with the mayor and each elected official about resuming with in-person city council, commission, board advisory group meetings, starting with our city council meeting on June 28th. And so we will share information with the public that we will not have a virtual meeting at that time. But as always, individuals can watch our meetings live via Facebook or Channel 10, which is HPTV. They can provide written comments to us if they wish to have their comments read on the record. And of course, individuals are welcome to join us when we do resume for in-person meetings. The council chambers is large enough that we believe people can physically distance themselves when they're in that room based on the average number of attendees that we have historically had at our city council meetings. And I am coordinating one-on-one with elected officials just as it pertains to the specific regulations that we will have. So for example, right now, if individuals are coming into City Hall or any other municipal building, masks are encouraged, but they're not required for individuals who are vaccinated. And we're not asking for proof of vaccination. So it's really on the honor system. But our staff are wearing masks if someone comes in and they have a mask on, just as a matter of professional courtesy to them. So I just want to pause for a moment and make sure that the city council is, in fact, everyone is comfortable resuming with in-person meetings for our next meeting on June 28th. Okay. Okay, perfect. And then in other news, certainly as the city council is well aware, we are working diligently on the development of our proposed fiscal year 22 budget. We start this process in April of every year. We held a special workshop with the city council in May 7th. We affirmed the mission and priorities of the city. We started talking about specific major projects and initiatives that that the city council from a policy perspective wants to make sure that we include in the budget. We reviewed our financial policies and a wealth of other information was conducted at that time. We are going to be scheduling our next public meeting to discuss the budget. That's going to be held on August 23rd. And I would encourage at this time, the public, if they do have any questions about our budget process or anything that is currently set forth in our budget, our fiscal year 21 budget is posted to the city's website. It is a long document, but personally, I think it's a very good read. It's really the principal policy document for the city. So it's really one of the most important things that we do. It sets forth our mission, our priorities, how much we're budgeting for things, when we're planning to pay for things, how we prioritize. So it is very informative. And again, it serves as a guide for us as we move forward, not only with the upcoming fiscal year, but our 10-year capital improvement plan as well. So again,
Councilmember Holloman has her hand up.
Okay.
Sorry. Just wanted to make sure before we continued on that her question was answered.
And my question was actually about the previous item. So if you feel free to finish and just call on me when you can.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Just the other thing that I did want to highlight is we do receive requests from the public about initiatives that are requested to be entertained. And then we will evaluate those as a staff. Policy considerations are brought forward to the city council. And again, the council feedback in terms of developing our budget, in terms of what our policy priorities are certainly reflected in there. But generally, we work at least 1 year out. And so right now, we are developing those major projects and initiatives to include in the fiscal year 22 budget. If individuals are interested in taking a look at what our major projects are for this year, we do have more than 120 major projects, which are really notable major initiatives that are outside of our day-to-day operation. Those two are on our website, and we provide quarterly updates on those. So the next quarterly update is going to be presented to the city council in the first meeting in July. But again, if anyone has questions, please feel free to contact us at any time. Councilman Holloman?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the meetings going back to in-person. I do think that one of the big advantages of this format has been that the public could participate in a more fully. by attending virtually. You didn't, if you were downtown, you didn't have to worry about getting here on the train. And so I think it did make access to meetings much simpler for the public. And I wondered if there's any way, and also it's two-way, right? So like if I'm just watching on channel 10, like I can't like raise my hand and ask a question or participate in the public participation in an interactive way. And I just wondered, is there any way that we could continue to broadcast a webinar kind of thing? I realize it might be an extra step, but just want to ask the question from a public perspective. Can we have a hybrid system so that people can join online and ask questions and participate even if we are in the City Hall?
Excellent point.
Mayor,
That's a
maybe
great.
I'll give a legal answer and then you can give the practical answer, Manager Newkirk, if that's okay with you, Mayor.
Sure, go ahead.
And I apologize to all, my video feed is not working, but I'm hearing and seeing all of you perfectly.
Okay.
Councilman Holloman, just from a legal perspective, insofar as the city itself conducting meeting and conducting business and voting, we are reliant on the existing Open Meetings Act, which requires a declaration by the governor and the mayor. If the governor does not extend his declaration on June 27th, then we will not be able to have a meeting that allows the council members to vote and be counted on as a regular meeting. I'll get to the public part in just a second, which I think is the primary part of your question. I just want to make this clear to everyone. There was an effort in Springfield to amend the Open Meetings Act to allow for more robust virtual meetings because of the success that many towns have had with them, but that failed. Two separate bills failed. The Attorney General opposed both of them. Now, having said that, the city can't conduct a meeting virtually other than through the old rules, which requires a quorum be present and limited excuses for people to leave in order to vote. That doesn't mean that the city couldn't make the public allow the public to participate remotely. They're not voters on matters before the city council. They're voters on bigger things, but there's practical issues with that, and I'll now turn it over to the city manager.
Thanks. We did talk about this. And so from a practical perspective, certainly it is possible. The challenge that we get is there is quite a bit to managing, certainly as everyone well knows, quite a bit to managing a virtual meeting. And then to have to manage a virtual meeting as well as the in-person meeting and with people raising their hands, it is challenging. I mean, it can be done. It adds an additional layer of, of staffing and work effort and making sure that everything is working. We also talked to the challenge when there are very controversial projects and there's an opportunity for the public to do cross-examination. I think it does become perhaps, I hate to keep saying more challenging, but it could be problematic, more challenging when you're trying to do cross-examination and you can't see the person and, they get to cross-examine witnesses. So it's possible, but we don't recommend it. And I think we give people certainly a number of different opportunities to have their voice heard without having to balance the hybrid option.
Steve, I have a question. How is this? Oh, there you are. How is this different from electronic participation by telephone?
The same rules apply, Mayor.
Okay.
Electronic participation by any means will, after the pandemic and the emergency declaration, be very limited. For members of the city council, a quorum must be present, and there's 3 very limited excuses for not being present.
Okay. Councilman Holloman, I think you had a follow-up question, didn't you? No? Okay. Councilmember Littleworth.
I actually did have one, and I think Stevie may have just answered it, but mine was a little more selfish than Councilmember Holloman's, which had to do with the council members. Since we're just moving back to in-person, is there an effective date? Like if in fact is there still a period of time for which we can call into meetings and that's acceptable? Or do we immediately, as of I guess, last week. with
Well,
Meetings
no,
Act regulations
actually-
and the 3 exceptions.
as the city manager indicated, just because we moved into phase 5 on June 11th does not mean that the remote participation was not allowed. It still is allowed, but it may end on June 27th. Remember, it requires 2 parts to it. It requires the governor's order and the mayor's order. And I believe what the consensus was just recently, even if the governor keeps his declaration in place on June 27th, in other words, extends it for another 30 days, the mayor of Highland Park has indicated, based on the consensus she just received, that she's going to lift it for city council meetings. That's what I heard in the last couple minutes. So we'll know even on June 27th whether the governor's going to extend it at all as well, Councilman Littleworth.
I'll just add, we do have a policy for electronic attendance at public meetings. And so Councilman, I'll share that with the city council just to refresh everyone's memory of that policy that we have.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bloomberg, did you have your hand up and then take it down, or?
I did have my hand up. I've taken it down. Corporation Counsel basically answered the question.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Tapia.
Yes, I like the consideration of making things easier for our citizens to participate even remotely for the reasons that Councilmember Holloman mentioned. I'm fully sensitive to what this might mean for city staff in terms of extra effort. So I don't know how much extra effort that would be, but I would welcome an exploration about whether that a hybrid would be possible. And in terms of the cross-examination, which is a very legitimate concern, I wonder if we were to explore the hybrid, whether if someone planned to do cross-examination, that a requirement would be that they would then have to be there in person. But I wouldn't want that situation to preclude others that just want to listen in and be participants from having the convenience that virtual has offered them.
Right. City manager, do you want to do a response? I mean, I think as a whole, this group is interested in facilitating increased public access to our meetings. It seems like everybody's nodding their heads. So I guess the question is, really, how hard is it? And is that something that we could figure out or explore over the next few weeks, recognizing that that's a goal of this group?
If you wish to make it happen, we can make it happen. It's just an additional activity that we need to do. It's another step that we have to have. I have a colleague who they need to have 5 people running it just based on cameras, and someone's got to run the live TV. Someone's got to make sure the camera for the virtual meeting is run. Right now, I manage promoting people's attendees, looking for raised hands. And so I'm doing quite a bit from behind the scenes. It's manageable. Again, it's just an additional layer. If the council's interested in it, certainly we can make it happen.
Councilmember Holloman?
Yeah, I wondered if, I don't know what the requirements are in terms of broadcasting, but could this replace the other broadcasts so that you're not adding a layer? I mean, to me, this is much more useful than the channel 10. Channel 10 rarely was clear. Like it's not, I mean, it's hard to hear. The quality isn't as good as this format, in my opinion. Is it possible that we reconfigure and repurpose our staff so that they can focus on a Zoom broadcast? I don't know what the technicalities are, but just want to throw that out there that maybe we don't need to duplicate. Maybe we can, replace with something if that's possible.
I'm just thinking of technological accessibility, those who may not have access to, computers, or maybe technologically not able to access computers, just in terms of age or whatever the case may be. But all of that notwithstanding, I guess the consensus of the group is, can we explore, see what our options are, do a cost benefit analysis, and see if there's an opportunity here out of this crisis to enhance our accessibility to the public. And I appreciate Councilmember Holloman raising the question. Thank you. Anything else under the city manager's report?
No, nothing further.
Great. Thank you so much. That is it for the city council meeting. To that end, I'm seeking a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
I'm sorry, aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 7 ayes, no nays. We stand adjourned. I now will call to order the committee of the whole meeting for the City of Highland Park, Illinois City Council, June 14th, 2021. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Tapia.
Present.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Here.
Councilmember Stone.
Here.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Here.
Councilmember Holloman.
Here.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Here.
Mayor Rotering.
Here, we have a quorum. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the May 24th, 2021 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Will the clerk please call the vote on the approval of the minutes?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone. Aye. Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 7 ayes, no nays. The minutes are approved. We'll continue on to scheduled business. Our first item is regarding the street capital plan.
Mayor, I'll introduce this, and then Director Canapretti, he'll introduce our staff team, who's going to present the first report that we have. But everything under the public agenda for the Committee of the Whole is a follow-up to the May 7th special workshop that we had with the City Council as part of a Committee of the Whole meeting. So at that time, there was a question raised about our street capital program, how much we're investing in terms of our infrastructure investment, how we prioritize our roads, and if there's an opportunity to increase the amount of funding just to expand our work effort throughout the community. So Director Canapretti and our engineering team has put together a PowerPoint presentation that outlines really a great comprehensive overview of this initiative. And then there is a policy question that we have for you as well. And we will post this PowerPoint presentation also on our website. So if anyone wishes to reference it in the future as well, then it'll be readily available for them.
Thank you, Manager Newkirk. Welcome again, members of the council. Again, as the PowerPoint, so let's hope that thing works. Always the challenge. All right, hopefully everybody can see screen. All right, good. All right, let's see. All right, there you go. All right, so I don't want to give you the scoop away. So all right, so this is the main screen. To welcome our team, I know most of you know, I do have a city engineer, Manny Gomez, Emmanuel Gomez on the screen. And so me and Manny will tag team. And I also have Ron Milanesio, who's our civil engineer, who did some of the cost analysis. So, he's there as a backup if we need to pull him. For the most part, it'll be Manny and I who will run this PowerPoint. Before we start, I do like to thank again Manny and his team for putting, for managing the majority of the capital improvement program is managed by the engineering. So so kudos goes to Manny and his team, and also to operations, which is Ron Bannon, who's the deputy director, and Randy Abbott, because they also are part of the operations team that involved with the pothole patching and the winter and any of the in-house patching programs. So it's all part of the street rehab program that comprises of the capital aspect of it and also comprise of the operations, which is the maintenance. So you got both aspects. So today we'll focus on the capital side of it. So with that, this is the brief agenda that goes through. We'll go through these. It looks a lot of it, but we will go through it in a quick manner. And as always, please, if there's any questions, please feel free to ask as we move along. What we want to highlight is like the staff considerations that we'll present both at the front and also at the end of the presentation. But in between, how do we do what we are doing right now, and also we want to introduce a new program called the SMART program that Manny will touch on it, and to address some of the concerns that was raised by the council at the April strategy meeting. For the staff consideration, we do want the council to to continue to our current program, which is which extends the payment life. We have a good, robust payment rehab plan. We've been doing it for a long time, and that has paid dividends. So we do want to continue that program. And also, as mentioned before, we do like to introduce a new program called the SMART program that addresses some of the concerns that was raised by the council members and some of the residents that they see on a daily basis, which is that surface condition. So there is, of course, being engineer, Manny being an engineer, of course, so am I. But acronyms are part of our. He comes from IDOT, so acronyms going to be given. So we'll relate what that SMART program entails. Payment types, again, just to give you context on where our considerations is heading to, just over type, payment types. So asphalt payment, that is, we got 136 lane miles of those asphalt programs, so we call it a type 1 asphalt. That means the surface is asphalt, the base layers are also asphalt, and then the subgrade is stone, and then the undisturbed subgrade is like either clay or some kind of a soil. So that's our type 1 payments. Type 2, this is very common for us, especially on the east side of the town, where the concrete base, the base is concrete, so the sub base is concrete, and then over time, we have just overlaid with asphalt. So we call it composite or type 2. And then we got 45 lane miles of those. So 20% of all streets are all composite. That means we got a stabilized base layer or a concrete base layer. And then type 3 is complete concrete streets. So basically everything is concrete over over the soil. So basically it's and we have 20% of those streets as concrete payments. How do we test? Again, the asphalt streets are the only one that get tested. We do a detailed analysis on our concrete streets. We test those streets every 5 years. We've been doing it every 3 years, but moving forward, we plan to do it every 5 years. These streets are tested. They give us a ranking, and then we develop our payment rehab plan based on this testing. So what does that entail? There's a van that moves around, with the IMS is one of the company names that does it. They have all this, laser and sensors on that van that test the street. So, it is GPS-based testing. We call that road cruiser. So what does it test? It tests three items are tested on every street. So the deflection, that means the deflection of the payment as that laser goes around. The dynamic condition is the sub base. How is that sub base? Is it strong enough? Because as we all know, if the foundation is good, anything on top of it will last long. And then the surface condition. And I think that's where this new SMART program comes in. So all these factors, all these three, deflection, dynamic, and surface condition, come up with a payment condition number. We call it the PCN. So the PCNs are rated from 0 to 100. So, basically 10 to 100. Anything new streets are all close to 100. Anything bad is like close to 10 to 40. We, like as a city, we said that we want to keep an average PCN to 70 or better. That means it has a good base, sub base, and also good surface, so that the streets can last for a long time. Some of the examples of a surface rating, a surface rating of 60, looks like, for the most part, looks in good condition. They can drive, some minor cracks and all. A surface rating of 52. I know the shade you cannot see much, but there are more than visible cracks, and then also visible inundation on those streets. A 43 is more visible cracks on the street, and really the conditions don't appear to be, and these cracks over time will become major potholes, and the surface deteriorate. And this is something which is less than 40, where literally there's patchwork going on, and there are pockets of streets which hold water. So these are the really bad surface condition. And then this is one of the composite payments. So this is the type 2 composite that we converted into an asphalt. So Euclid's Court was one time a concrete street, and then it became, we overlaid it with asphalt, so that now, this street can last for a long time. But it was a type 2 composite street, that was converted from a type 3 all concrete street. So in general, the summary right now, based on the last testing, which was done like in 2017, our average is at 61, but our surface average is at 57. So let's say we don't do any improvements, we don't do any of our pavement rehab, each year, payments do deteriorate, and then the surface will, the average will drop to 53, and the surface average will drop to 49. And that's the one that is most noticeable to all our residents, is the surface condition. And then if you just take to the type 2, so this is where it gets tricky. The type 2 average is the 83. Because the base is so good, the sub base is concrete base, that's where the average gets higher. And then you look at the surface of those type 2 concrete street, that's at 62. So what does that tell us? That okay, that these streets, they have a good foundation, but the asphalt surface is deteriorating, and that's why their average has dropped to 62. And if you don't do anything, again, the average still remains high at 79, but the surface drops below to 54. We like, again, as I said before, we like to keep everything at 70. That's our ideal goal. So how do we do this? We've been doing this program. So we base it on the payment condition number. We try to repair the worst streets first. In addition, we also like to take a holistic approach. So if there is a water main project going on, or if there's an undersized storm sewer project going on, or a sidewalk project, we like to do all these projects at the same time, rather than doing redoing the street and then later on find out that hey, we got a 4-inch water main. We don't want to do that. When we develop our capital improvement program, we look at holistically all the infrastructure on that particular street, and we like to basically maximize our dollars, so that we are doing it all in a cost and effective strategy. We develop a 5-year payment rehab list, and again, based on the PCN numbers and taking into account any of the water main, and then we review it on an annual basis, during our budget process. Basically, the next big budget meeting, which is in August, that's when we go through our capital program, and that list these payment rehab. So on a current program, that's how we do. We do a 5-year interval, and we rank those streets, and we include it in our 10-year budget, and then we review it on an annual basis. So I know this curve, we have seen it in our capital presentation. So what it tells is, like, on x-axis, x-axis you have the payment life, and on the y-axis you have the payment condition. So what it tells is that when the payment life of a new payment gets to 13 to 15 years, it is good to do an overlay, so that you can extend it for 20 years. You let that street go down, then you will end up in what we call as a costly repairs or reconstruction. As you can see those numbers, reconstruction of per mile of a street is 6.1 million, whereas if you just do an overlay, which you can get it done like in either 900,000 or 765,000, you are adding 20 years to that life. But if you let the street just deteriorate, then our overall cost down the road goes on. So that's why our current payment rehab program, that's what we base it on this payment condition number, because we don't want the streets to fall back so much that we are making costly repairs.
Hey, Ramesh, where does the crack ceiling come in on this chart? Is that surface treatments?
Yep, the crack ceiling comes in the surface treatment, and then the payment rejuvenation, those are all surface treatment. That is correct, Mayor.
Okay,
So
thanks.
those will help in what you call is initially like a short term. So you're basically sealing those cracks before they become potholes.
Where the water gets under. Thank you.
So our payment rehab program, the one that we do it every year, is what we call is a annual resurfacing. This is like the 2.5 to 3 inch grind and overlay. So basically, we grind 3 inch of payment, and we put in 2.25 inch of new payment. Out of that, 1.5 inches is the surface course, and then we use some the binder course, which helps protect the surface course. So that is our annual program. And we also do change, as I said before, the type 3 concrete street. each year we try to convert at least one concrete street into a type 2 composite street. Basically, we try to put that asphalt layer on top. Again, this helps us address some of those poor surface conditions, but it also helps us manage the maintenance program, because concrete street maintenance, once it deteriorates fast. And then those potholes on a concrete streets are much harder or challenging to repair compared to an asphalt street, because you can always throw a cold patch into it. But a concrete street, once those gaps get wider, even if you throw in those asphalt into those concrete street gaps, they'll come out at the next freeze thaw cycle. So it is good to have a asphalt street maintenance compared to a concrete street maintenance program. Some of the other things that we do as part of our payment rehab program is the concrete street. So we come to the council for a concrete street patching. This is like we repair sections of the street. We take out 7 inches of concrete and we put in new 7 inches of concrete. And also we also do sometimes, the budget allows, we do this asphalt patching program. This is like we take out 4 inches of sections of concrete. Instead of doing the entire street, we take care of portions of the street which are really in bad condition. Again, that also helps us with the surface condition of the street. And then the type 1 asphalt, that pavement regeneration or the crack sealing, these are all maintenance programs that helps extend the pavement life. And then, of course, we do our in-house repairs. So these minor repairs that we do in the summer months, which are permanent patching, and then in winter months we do the cold patch and to address any immediate pothole concerns. City's core priority, as listed, is one of them is the infrastructure investment. And I like to again thank this particular council, because I joined the city in 2012, and I can say that since 2011 we have increased our infrastructure investment big time. So I know you hear from the residents about the city streets, but I like to show some of the successes in terms of how much city has spent. Again, I just took down the last 5 years or 4 years of them. We have spent a good amount of funding on the city streets. As you can see, in 2017 and 18, we've been spending close to 2.6. Again, this is just to rehabilitate the streets. And then 2019, we have increased. And then 2020, of course, the COVID impact, we could not do a lot. And then this year, we are back to spending close to 1.5 miles of streets that are $1.5 million to get to streets. And I'm sure you must be wondering, in 2017, we got 5 street miles and 1.28 street miles in 2021. Well, the cost of asphalt, has gone up too, and so the number of streets we are doing is getting reduced. Manny will cover that graph. I know you have seen that in our capital presentations, but he will cover on how the cost of asphalt has literally doubled in the 10 years, reducing the number of streets that we can do. Again, just to put in a number, so for the 3 years, we spent close to 6.8, and in the last 5 years, we have spent $9 million on street pavement rehabs. With that, I'll give the presentation to Manny again based on what council's meeting at the strategy meeting. We are introducing this new program called SMART program, again, just for council to consider as part of another program to help address some of the concerns raised by the residents in terms of the surface conditions.
Ramesh, can you go back to the last slide for a minute?
Yes, ma'am. This one or this one?
No. The one you just had. Yeah.
Okay,
So, okay. So for those 2 years, it was 6.8. And then you're just saying for those 4 years, there was that differential. Okay.
The 2020, remember, Mayor, the 2020, the COVID, we did not do much.
Okay.
But
so you're just showing us the last 4 years and okay.
Yeah, exactly. So
it just wasn't clear to me that you were doing 2019 to 2021 and okay, but you're not.
Okay. Right. No. I just want to show that 2017 and 18 and 19, we did a lot.
We did do a lot and nobody could go anywhere, but now the streets are great. So that worked out well.
All right.
Okay.
All right, Manny.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you, Mayor, Council. What I want to go over is a proposed new program, as Ramesh mentioned. SMART, we like acronyms because we're engineers. So SMART stands for Surface Maintenance at Right Time. The program is really intended to address the surface condition of the pavement. Ramesh went over the things about the subsurface and the PCN number and all that stuff. And that's good. That's good to know and good to have because that extends the pavement life. But where we have that solid base, but the surface is starting to look bad, that's where that PCN number will really never get below 70 because it's such a solid base, but the surface continues to deteriorate to the point where it looks bad and rides, you don't get a good ride. So this program is intended to address the surface. We would propose to do minimal concrete repairs. Again, we're just trying to do asphalt surface removal and replacement as much as we can, extend as much of that as we can. We would do a thinner overlay compared to the thicker one that Ramesh mentioned earlier. We would generally try to remove about 1.5 inches of the old surface and put back 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches, depending on the surface, the pavement variations. And we want to make it smooth and make sure it flows, the drainage continues to flow correctly. So because it is a thinner overlay, it's more susceptible to what's called reflective cracking. Now, the type 1 streets, those are the streets, if you recall, that are full thickness of asphalt. They don't tend to reflect as much because asphalt pavements really don't have joints. So those would be, this program would be good for those streets. And, of course, where you have no curves and no storm sewers, we can extend that thinner overlay for a longer distance. Where we do have the concrete base, those are where the concrete has joints in it. Typically when they build it, they put joints in it because concrete, as we know, expands and contracts. And those joints would tend to reflect more easily on a thinner overlay, a thinner asphalt overlay. And one way to address those is to crack seal them. As the mayor said, you want to put something over those cracks before you get the water in them. And crack sealing is an excellent practice to prevent that water from getting in. Of course, the new surface looks nice, and it provides a good riding surface. And the surface now, asphalt mixes these days are pretty good. I mean, they've been around for a long time. People have been experimenting with different mixes, so they can last up to 10 years. And most of our streets have low volumes of traffic, so what really kills what causes most deterioration is the age, not the amount of traffic. It's not Route 41, for example. This program would not replace the pavement rehabilitation program. We want to keep that PCN number at 70 or above because that's important to extend the pavement life. What we want to do with this is treat the surface. We don't want to tell a resident that calls, well, your PCN number is 79, so I can't really do anything. And they're like, come out and look at my street. It looks pretty bad. And I understand that. I mean, it's a balancing act, and it's sometimes difficult to say, nothing needs to be done to the street. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. Next slide, please, Ramesh. I'll go over some cost and funding. Okay, here, this chart here, this graph here, in the green shows the asphalt resurfacing dollar amounts, and this is from the approved 2021 budget. The council approved the 2021 budget. These numbers are from that budget, and as you can see in each year, it goes up and down a little bit, but the common trend here, we're looking at about $1 million a year of spending for asphalt resurfacing. And for concrete patching, that's of course in the purple, red, and we're spending about $500,000. It goes up and down more, but that's about what we're spending. But I wanted to focus on the asphalt spending. Can you do the next slide, please, Ramesh? Okay, here's the average cost of asphalt. And you can see from the trend line, it is going up. I mean, from 2015 to 16, it went down some, and then it started going up again. But unfortunately, it didn't continue to go down in 2016. So between 2011 and now, I mean, we've almost doubled the cost of asphalt. And the price of the material, is going up, and as with a lot of things, prices generally go up. What really goes down in price over time, and of course, with the price of asphalt going up, and our spending or budget being about $1 million per year for a number of years, what that means really is that, we're able to resurface less streets because the price of the material went up, but the spending is the same. So something's got to give, right? You can't, both can't happen at the same time. It just doesn't work. Thank you, Ramesh. Okay, so the annual pavement rehabilitation program, what we're showing here is the cost to improve all pavements to a pavement condition number of 70 is 47 million. Now, what that means is we're not going to make each street 70 because as soon as you do work on a street, we don't tell the contractor, hey, go in and put some potholes in there and drive your bulldozer over to rough it up. Okay, so get it from 95 to 70 for us. Well, no, what this is we're looking at all of the streets and doing an average. So to get to an average of 70, some will be higher and some may even be lower, but that's going to be 47 million. To convert the concrete streets to a composite, in other words, all the ones that are full depth concrete and put an asphalt layer on them, that would cost $20 million. With the SMART program, the surface treatment at the right time, the cost to improve all payments to a rating of 60 is about 32.3 million. Again, that's an average. I mean, we're not telling the contractor go in there and rough it up and get us to 60 on each street that you just finished. And here's a cost breakdown per rating. So the surface rating, from 69 to 60, it would take $19 million to do those. A surface rating of 59 to 50, 11. Here's the ones that are in bold, and we put them in bold just to emphasize them. A surface rating of 49 to 40 would be $2 million, and a surface rating less than 40 would be about 0.3. So you can see that, of all the 1, 2, 3, 4, those 4 categories, the bottom 2, fortunately, we don't need $50 million to get, those bottom 2 to make improvements to them. We only need 2.3 million. So what's that telling you is that, yeah, those surface ratings are bad, but it's not as many as the ones that are good. Thank you, Ramesh.
Thank you. Council Member Stone has her hand up.
Sure.
And if I could ask this crew just to use the raise hand function, only because we're over on the side. So I'm just like scrolling through. Thanks, Councilmember Stone.
Manny, thank you for this detailed information. How, in terms of the ones that you've got bolded right now, number 3 and number 4, what's the time frame for getting those repaved? Is that within our budget in the next couple of years, or is that longer?
We did not plan this at all.
I knew Councilmember Stone will ask that question. That's coming. You're jumping ahead.
Okay, sorry.
Good lead in. Good lead in.
And I didn't even ask this of you in advance.
I know.
Yeah. Council Member Stone, yeah,
I will wait.
that will be answered as part of this presentation. Thank you for the question.
I will await the response.
All right. Where were we? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I think
this is here. You take over right here, right, Ramesh?
All right. Thanks, Manny. So I think so with Manny's that SMART program. I think we introduced that program again to the council is to, because everybody looks at the surface condition and that's the one that we are that we like to address. Again, we don't want to address because we're getting complaints, but we also want to do it in a strategic manner to ensure that if we do address those streets are looked upon, that there is no water main projects or there's no street projects or there's nothing going on in those projects for the next 10 years. Those are the ones that we like to get it done to get a better bang for our buck. So again, just a recap on these 2 programs, our payment rehab program, which is in the works. It helps us, if you look at that graph that we just showed, that's where we get our major bang for our buck, because by doing that program, continuing that program, we're going to avoid those costly down the road expenses. The proposed SMART program, again, it's a program that helps to get the work street done, and again gives you can say that it provides some kind of an instant a success rate to at least get some of those, especially those less than 50 surface rating streets, have them repaved with the understanding that there's no other project going on in those streets. So that helps us with this program. I know this next slide is to address some of the major street, because I think some of the calls that you got are the ones you hear, hey, look at the neighboring municipalities, look at their streets and look at our streets. Well, what I like to say to that is that we have, the slide that the mayor also asked us to show. We have done a lot for the residential streets because we are following a strategy. I know that those residential streets, those homeowners who reside on the residential streets are happy that their streets are getting done. So we have done a lot of program. Some of the major streets, yeah, we do have it because these are all. So just to give you, Clayview Road is a concrete street, so that's going to be redone in completely asphalt by the end of next year. Habday Road, this is the Habday Road, between between the signal light, Route 41, just east of the Route 41 to Western Avenue. We got a new water main we are proposing that to be done next year. Park Avenue West, which is again another concrete street, we got to redo the bridge. Once we redo the bridge, we plan to address the street. And then Green Bay Road, another concrete street. Our plan, again, all these projects, again, thanks to Manny and his team, we were able to get grant projects on all these. So these are all grant funded projects, and they do take time, but these are all 10 million plus projects, so they're very expensive. So it is good to do that program according to the schedule that was given to us. So we hope that in the next 5 years, at least the major thorough streets within the city of Highland Park will be addressed with these projects.
Ramesh, Councilmember Stone has her
Yes.
hand up.
Yes.
Thank you. I just want to make sure nobody glosses over the statement here at the bottom of this slide that you've got new bike lanes on Green Bay Road, which is something that the Bike Walk Advisory Group has been working on, and really excited that got a state grant. So good work, Ramesh and Manny, on getting that done. Looking
Me
forward
too,
to that.
yeah. So yeah, we got on that project. Yeah, we were just awarded the ITEP grant. So that's really good news. So to answer Councilmember Stone's project, so this is what we are proposing, Mayor and Council, that we continue to keep our current annual program. And I know that the average is a 1 million for the asphalt streets and 300 to 500 for concrete streets, and that can vary each year. But on an average, we want to continue that program because again, we don't want to fall back on that. And then come up with this new SMART program, again, surface treatment only on those streets. And then the 2.3 million, the one that Manny highlighted, we can get it done in the next 2 years, 22 and 23. And then after that, we like to spend like $1 million each year on this program. And the idea behind that is to at least all those streets with the surface condition less than 50, at least we can have those streets addressed in the next couple of years. And one of the ways to pay for that 2.3 million is like city was awarded close to $2 million in they call the Rebuild Illinois funds, and each the one close to $2 million is given over 3 years, and we get like $650,000 each year. We have like 1.3 million still left on that from the Rebuild Illinois to be spent. So one of the ways that we like to advance this SMART program, again, if council is in favor, is to incorporate that rebuild funds towards this SMART program, at least pay portions of it, and then the other portion, we're going to go through our budget process to see to find the money. But at least we got some money allocated to pay for the SMART program, and that's what we like to we like the council to consider again. And again, this will give us immediate successes in addition to our continued asphalt program, but also address some of the concerns raised by the council.
Thank you. So Geeta, are you seeking consensus from the group this evening? Is that sort of where we're headed?
Yes, please, Mayor. Yes.
Is it possible to stop sharing the screen for a moment, just so we can all see the whole crew? Thanks. Okay, so basically it sounds like you're asking for our consensus towards putting this extra 2.3 towards the SMART program. And then are you also looking, I kind of am curious to see how it works out before I agree to $1 million thereafter, just to kind of get a sense of how it all plays out and what the impact is on traffic and so forth. within the city. That's just sort of my point of view, but curious to hear from everybody else. Thoughts, questions? Councilmember Stone?
I'll weigh in. I agree that I'd like to see how it works the first year and how it fits into the overall budget as well, because it's a pretty significant increase in the budget for roads.
And I greatly appreciate you coming up with this, because I think we can all attest to the comments about the roads are probably the most prolific of any issue in the city. And whether they're warranted or not, it's what people see and what people experience and what people feel strongly about. So, Councilmember Littleworth?
What I really like about this is that it really does go to show us how worst roads are the most minimal investment. And so while this is a big chunk, I think that philosophically this is in line with what I'd like to see. To your point, Mayor, about the first thing that people see in our town are the roads or the way you enter the community. The bad ones are really bad. And if this takes us down the path, no pun intended, of correcting that problem, I think it's a really good place to start. So I'm a little appalled by the investment. I would really not support going forward with the annual cost until we really evaluate on a very picayune basis how well this has gone. But I do think it's incredibly necessary. And again, philosophically, I think it's the right place to start.
Thank you. Councilmember Tapia?
Yeah, I would agree that this would be an important thing to really consider and seeing that we can find the extra funds to cover the initial 2.3 million. And it's interesting, you have to contend with perception versus reality, right? That maybe the roads that look bad are underneath pretty substantial, but there's something to be said about vibrancy that doesn't, in some ways, the look of the roads actually does have an impact on psychology and on the sense of whether our city is as vibrant as it can be. So paying attention to that, even though underneath we might feel comfortable that the roads are strong enough, I think it's worth the impact it would have on our city.
Thank you. Councilman Bloomberg? Councilmember Bloomberg?
Thank you. I agree with that and everything that's been suggested. I am in favor of increasing our expenditure, but not wanting to jump too far ahead of ourselves. There is a tension between the fact that many of the worst roads, those that are in most immediate need of attention, are in neighborhoods. And we hear, among other things, the comments about, well, the roads in my neighborhood, my street is a mess. When are you going to get to it? And of course, we're all sensitive to that. But there's also a sensitivity, as Councilmember Tapia pointed out. There's the issue of the main feeder streets, Clavey, Lake Cook, especially Central and Park Avenue, may need to be paved before they become too deteriorated because they represent the entrance into our city. So maybe in addition to categorizing the street and using laser measurements to assess what the actual conditions of the street are, there may have to be some prioritizing to advance some of the more public visible streets higher up the list to be repaved or refinished more frequently.
Okay. Councilmember Stolberg or Holloman, any thoughts on this?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm sorry, Michelle, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
No, I agree with what Councilman Bloomberg said. Obviously, we're first of all, we're very lucky in Ramesh and his team, and the way that, I've gotten these requests, as I'm sure all of you have, or comments or unhappiness about streets. And we do have a very almost non-subjective, to an extent, way of evaluating our roads. And I think it's great that we have a system in place so that the worst ones are done first. Obviously, as Ramesh spoke about, milling and paving is certainly multiples less expensive than going down to the base and removing it. And it really does extend the life quite a long time. Obviously, we want to make a good first appearance, not only to those entering our community, but for those who pay taxes and view our responsibility as maintaining their community. However, it's a big number, and I think we need, we're getting into, believe it or not, our budget season for the coming year, and I think we need to focus on, the difference between wants and true affordability, and where this multiple $1 million comes from sooner rather than later. And while we want to create that appearance and add as much life as we can to our streets, at what cost or what do we give up to find this couple $1 million? I don't want to lean on the fact of just saying, oh, the slush fund is raising taxes if we need more money. That's not my preference. Obviously, we only have a finite amount of dollars, and it's a balance. So I agree with everything everyone has said. I think it's going to come down to how we can evaluate the need and the priority and what may have to give in exchange for doing this sooner, and if that's reasonable.
Right, because we are talking about other expenditures in about 3 minutes that are also.
Good segue for you.
Well, we're not quite there yet, but thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Holloman and then Councilmember Littlewer.
No, I support this. I appreciate the SMART program. I think it's a great idea, and we do have to invest in our streets. Bottom line, I think that's a good plan.
Thank you. Councilmember Littlewer.
I just had a question. This price tag is 2.3 million. Do the worst two sets of streets, it would be 1.3 million. Is that because we're including the 1 million of what would be the annual fee to do this, or why is it 2.3 million and not 1.3?
No. So 2.3 million is for all those surface condition less than 50, the streets which are in bad condition. The total cost to repair them which are less than 50 surface rating is 2.3 million. And we decided to split 2.3 is a lot to take in 1 year construction season. So since we already have our 1 million program, we wanted to do 1.3 and 1 million, divide that 2.3 to 2 years so that we are not having construction all over the town. So we wanted to divide that into 2-year project so that we're doing 1.3 and 1 million.
Thank you.
Thank you. So where are we on the move forward 2.3? Do people want to hear what else we're discussing this evening before you're comfortable making that assessment?
Or
Well, Mayor, we could plug it into the budget, the 2.3, because we're going to come back to the council and you'll see it in the totality. So you're still going to have several opportunities to see it completely.
Okay.
So just for our purpose, we'd rather add it and then take it away later than have to try to add it later. If that's okay. So what I'm hearing, there's general support, but sensitivity certainly to the overall cost and impact on the whole budget.
I think that's a fair summary of the group's position. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you, Manny.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Okay, are we now moving on to the streetscape plans?
We are, yes. Just give me one moment. I'll introduce this and then I just want to promote Director Fontaine. Okay. So the next item on the agenda, we don't have a formal PowerPoint. The agenda is very detailed at the May 7th special workshop that we had with the City Council. There were a couple of questions raised as to the downtown, or as Councilmember Stone says, uptown, so uptown streetscape plan. And so we included a copy of that streetscape plan in the agenda packet. So it's 22 pages in totality. It identifies a comprehensive study that was undertaken several years ago, different recommendations for street furniture and signage and various other streetscape improvements. What we also included for public information purposes is our annual program for maintenance, as well as special projects and infrastructure investment that has been conducted in the downtown. We are in regular communication with our property owners and businesses. Actually, it was just last week, we had a walk through the downtown where we looked at both public property as well as private property with our property owners. And we documented areas that may not meet our property maintenance code that should be addressed, or other areas of enhancement. And so that ongoing communication takes place regular. And so for the purpose of this evening, what we wanted to do is get the council's feedback. Are there any aspects of this downtown streetscape plan that you would like us to consider moving up. We understand that a lot of these big price ticket items, or, you know, they're small priced if you take it individually, are starting in fiscal year 28. And that does seem like a long ways away. So if there's an interest in moving one or more of these forward, then just let us know and we will try to incorporate that into the budget and then come back again so you can see the budget in totality.
Gita, did you want me to begin presentation, Gita, or?
Yeah, so what we thought we would do is we could bring up one page that itemizes the streetscape and the associated cost, and we could work off of there unless the council has
sorry.
other questions.
Can everyone see my screen? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you, Gita. So this document represents the FY 2021 CIP document, essentially, that has been approved by the council that only goes out to FY 30. Everything after FY 30 has not been approved yet, but as each year goes by, an additional year will come within the 10-year window that is our traditional capital improvement budgeting horizon. And so this year we will be adding FY 31 and its associated costs to the recommended capital improvement budget. So you can see here that this program, which is a subset of a much larger program that was developed in 2016 to 2018 for downtown streetscape investment opportunities. And what we did is council had asked that we provide a smaller budget, but focused and actionable plan for how to make it the most strategic improvements, if you will, to beautify and increase the amenities of our downtown. And so that's what this plan represents. It consists of gateway signage, seating, trash receptacles, bike racks, bike shelters, transit shelters, and wayfinding signs and other types of signs, and improvements to the aesthetics of the Laurel Avenue Viaduct. So in total, this is about a $2.2 million capital improvement program. That does include project engineering and operationalization, which is a 30% add-on to the base cost estimate of the items shown. Of course, these are only cost estimates. None of this has been bid out. This has been approved to commence in FY 2028, so we're a long way off from bidding any of this work. You can see here, this table shows by fiscal year what staff had suggested be the improvements and projects for this program. There's nothing to say that it has to go in this sequence. This was just a recommended sequence based on staff's review of the various elements and how we might sequence them over time to have an orderly improvement of the downtown. And what we mean by that is, because we're spreading this program out over a 7-year horizon, as you can see here, we thought that this might be one way that would be appropriate to approach that type of investment. Certainly there are other ways to do that, but I do note that we do have geotechnical and survey work that needs to be done regardless. When you're placing things permanently in the ground, you need to know where you're going and you need to make sure it's in the right place and not interfering with other things. And one would be amazed at what you find when you do that work. And so best to get that work done early on so that mistakes aren't made. So that work would likely be a precursor to any other finalization of significant improvements in the district. With that, I ask the council if there's any feedback on this plan, the sequence, order, or the elements of the plan, and as the city manager indicated, the timing of the plan.
Thank you, Joel. Councilmember Stone.
Thanks. So the streetscape plan was done in 2016, and we're talking about beginning implementation 12 years later, by which time the design really will be outdated and we're going to have to redesign it. And 2016 already is 30 years after the last time we had a design of the downtown. The design was done in 86 for the business district, as street furniture and arcade and all of that. So I think we really need to find a way to begin implementation sooner. I think that these improvements will make our downtown a more desirable place to visit and help our local businesses. It's especially important now as we recover from the pandemic to try and get this to happen now. So I looked at the budget, this page that's up here, and thought about what we could do that would make the most difference. And I think that the street furniture, the trash cans, and the seating are things that would be a relatively small investment, but would improve vibrancy in the short term. There's no need for further engineering studies to do furniture. And I think those are elements that we should proceed with sooner rather than later. And hopefully within the next couple of years, we could find a way to incorporate those into the budget.
Thank you for raising that point. I think that's an important alternative that we need to consider. Next is Councilmember Littlewer, and then Bloomberg, and then Holloman.
Thank you very much. I don't know if I come up on the screen, but it doesn't show that way on my screen. So in any event, can you hear me? Is that okay?
Yep, we can hear you. We can see you.
Okay, great.
Mayor, do you want me to unshare my screen, or is it useful to have the screen as it is?
Let's unshare for the moment, and then we can
Okay.
always come back if people need to refer to it. Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
have a copy, so that'll help me. So first of all, I really concur with Councilmember Stone as to the relevancy of this. And look, on the one hand, it shows tremendous insight that we have planned that far ahead, and I'm very impressed with that. On the other hand, I completely agree with her that for it to remain relevant, we really need to kind of bring some of these things to the fore, if earlier than what is currently scheduled. I too was looking at this with an eye toward what could we do on a minimal basis that would give us, in a sense, a shot in the arm, if you will, some sort of an uplifting feeling. I mean, if I had my druthers, I absolutely love the primary and secondary gateways because they're beautiful, and you would drive into this town and how could you not smile? So, I mean, in my ideal world, that's what I would do, but recognizing the price costs, I'm not actually suggesting that. Especially in talking with the city manager and looking through all the budgeting things, it actually became depressing to suggest those two with a straight face. I did take a bit of a different tack, and one of the things that I'm excited about hopefully doing in the very near future is putting into place something where we're charging for parking on an automatic basis. That I looked at the parking signs, and I looked at the fact that those signs would be somewhat uplifting. There are so many of them that I felt there would be more of a branding and marketing aspect to it that would be community-wide, shall we say, because it's in the north and the south and various portions of the community where there would be parking signs. So we'd have more of a theme. You walk down Roger Williams, these beautiful signs, and you see what a wonderful job has been done. And I want to tie all that in, and I don't see another way of doing it without spending a lot of money at the entrances to our city. So I like the idea of both the parking signs and the bike rack, the first phase, so that we're sort of in keeping with the fact that we want to encourage these type of things. We've done so much with bike lanes so far, so I'd like to encourage that type of behavior by putting in the racks. And then I told with the signs would be a cheaper way of beginning to brand in such a way. I do want to add one caveat to that, and the caveat is I absolutely love the way this was designed, but to me, Highland Park has always been blue, and it's been HP blue. And I just have to raise it now because I know we're going into this whole marketing thing in another 2 weeks, and consistency for branding is crucial. And I'm not saying I have any problem with the design, but even maybe if there was like one of those little things that was blue, I don't know. Maybe I'm old fashioned. Maybe I'm thinking back to the schools, but that's always how I identified HP. And then when I was looking at the viaduct pictures and I saw them in different colors, I said, wait a minute, I'm not the only person who thought about blue. So I just ask that whenever we do some planning at some point, we maybe do take that into account. I remain for the meeting in 2 weeks, but I did want to raise it. And these two items, by the way, come to a total of $18,000. And that's another reason I raised them. They were the two cheapest things on the list, but that I felt did add to our branding of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't even ask Gita about the red sweatshirt that she did for the sesquicentennial. That's like a whole nother story. Councilmember Bloomberg and then Councilmember Holloman.
Thank you. So I certainly agree with what's been said, particularly with what Councilmember Stone had to say about timing and the need to get going now. I do like the selection of objects that were picked out some time ago, and I think they still look appropriate. But I think the importance of getting going now as we're coming out of the pandemic is critical. And if I were to start with something, it would be seating. But the plan that we talked about also incorporated some alterations to the physical intersections and the sidewalks to expand them at certain areas. And these things go hand in hand. I'm thinking of a study that was done by a planner, William H. White, who was active in the late 60s, early 70s in New York, who was the author of A Project for Public Space. Public spaces are what we're talking about in Highland Park to draw people in, to want to shop, to be in Highland Park. So seating that's comfortable, that is even modestly something that somebody sort of momentarily calls their own, is important. We discussed why the circular benches don't work so well because they face everybody away from each other. But to have seating and open areas that people are drawn to is very important. So as we're talking about improving the streets, especially into our downtown, what they bring us to and what we experience when we're in downtown is what's going to be critical. That people want to be there. And that means being able to sit there when the weather's nice, to relax there, to have access easily to the places that they want to be. So I would like to see seating as an early part of this and to get going on that right away. And to also consider, while we're looking at our streets, to expanding sidewalks where we can in the downtown business district and making the intersections more amenable to pedestrians and part of the experience of just being in the downtown rather than the experience of just trying to avoid cars.
Great points. Thank you. Councilmember Holloman.
Yeah, I won't belabor the points because I think Councilmember Stone really summed it up nicely in terms of what the priorities could be. And just wanted to echo that. I totally think the seating and the, I think you said garbage cans and seating were top on your list. And I think those are really easy done. Like you said, they don't need to be stuck in the ground. There's no surveying. And it does encourage a sense of community. So I was aligned with that, and I hope we can move forward with those kinds of priorities that encourage, public gathering outside and after a pandemic seems like a great idea to me.
Thank you. Councilmember Tapia and then Councilmember Stone.
Yeah, I just want to add my voice to the sentiments of my council members, colleagues, and that is I will be very supportive of some of these easy to do, aesthetically pleasing changes sooner rather than later. And also, for those of you who may have experienced Indianapolis over a long period of time, it was not a walkable city at all for a long time. And they actually went about putting seating and walking paths and sidewalks and bike paths. And it's become one of the most walkable cities in the Midwest now. And many restaurants and other amenities have sort of built around the walkability of that city. And so I know there's already an agreement here that these things would be amenable. There's several case studies that I think are available to look at. So I would be in favor of that. The gateway thing is actually, the signage is very attractive. I see the price tag. I would like to, put it on some future agenda to see, what would it take, and in relation to, the budget that we're going to be looking at. I wouldn't mind seeing that as something to be considered as we push and shove on other priorities. But if we could find a way to add that, that could be quite a stunning entrance to our city that might be worth us weighing some cost benefit trade-offs.
Thank you. Councilmember Stone?
Thanks. So we talked about spending the money, but we didn't talk about where the money was going to come from. And I just want to make a couple points on that. I think we have some money from developers from public benefit fees that should be able to be used for this. In addition, I sent Gita a grant opportunity today from a group called People for Bikes that makes grants of up to $10,000 for things including bike racks. And they like to pay for, I believe, less than half of a project. So if we've got, $21,000 worth of bike rack improvements, we might be able to get 10 of that paid for with that grant. So I think that we can, be creative about how to do this.
Yeah, based on the feedback from the council, what we'll do is, I guess what I'm looking for is policy feedback. So I have 3 people right now that support the trash recycling cans, seating, and tables. So that we can definitely incorporate in there. And just if there's anything else in terms of majority interest, yeah, we want you to put this in the budget. And so once we do that, we'll come back, we'll try to work within the framework of the current balanced budget that we have. And if we need to defer a project in order to make this work, certainly we'll have that conversation at the next budget workshop in August.
I think there may be more than 3. I think I sensed that it was pretty much everybody.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. But so trash, recycling cans, seating, and tables. I know there were other items that were raised. Is there majority interest to include those other items or just?
Let's go through each.
Okay.
Seating, raise your hand.
Okay.
Trash cans, for lack of a better phrase. Bike racks.
If we can find some additional money to.
Right.
Then
Then I'm in support of that as well. I mean, I think if you have to prioritize, and then what else? There were bike shelters. Tables, I think people are more interested in the benches. Although the other question I had, and maybe this was just confusion over the items that were presented in terms of the arcade, like why can't we have seating and tables under the arcade now? Do we need to rebuild the arcade, or can we have some seating and some tables under the arcade? Are people shaking their heads, nodding their heads? I don't know what people are saying.
The arcade. I don't mean to be so silly, but I have. It is.
You what? You don't know what it is? The arch over the train tracks with the lights that when you walk down Central?
It connects.
That's what we. Okay.
That's the arcade. The other question I have, and maybe we haven't concluded the straw poll. What other items did you have on there?
Someone mentioned
the gateways. Oh, go ahead.
And that mentioned the signage, the parking signage. And I wonder whether we might be able to do something to spruce up the existing parking signage. Can we paint it or do something to make it look a little bit nicer without completely replacing the signage? Would that be helpful?
Councilmember Holloman has her hand up.
Yeah, with regard to the signage, I hear what Annette's saying, but to me, it seems like signage is something, if we can do it all at once, like piecemealing the signage, I think is kind of tough you need to choose colors and styles and materials. And to do that in separate chunks, you always end up with like, oh, they don't have that color anymore. Like it becomes a bigger issue. And I think if we're going to throw our money at something, if we're telling the public, we're going to invest in signage so that you can pay us more for parking, I think that sends wrong messaging too. And no, I don't mean, I just think like if we're going to invest in signage and, like the gateway sign, sure, but then you're surveying, so I think,
right.
I think we need a big chunk. I fully support the signage and I'm obviously a marketing person and the branding is important to me, but I feel like we've got to be able to do that when we can really do it. And like we did in Ravinia, we did it all at one time. And I think there's value in that.
It looks cohesive. It doesn't look piecemeal. Councilmember Stolberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to on what's already been said. I'm supportive of those first three initiatives. But as liaison to the PDC, I see all the time, and to piggyback on what Council Person Stone said, you know, oftentimes, no matter how big or small, the developers do come before us with their own idea of a public benefit, what they think works. And if we truly, like, for example, I saw, you know, Andres, Councilman Tapia's email today to Gita about public benefit and how is it defined and what are we looking for? And I know a couple of years ago, Gita, with Joel's help and Andy's help, we actually created a list and what we call, I don't want to say acceptable public benefits, but
Even the guidelines for public benefit.
and instead of, you know, you know, to Councilperson Tapia's comment today, you know, the public benefit per the code is supposed to be commensurate with the relief being sought. So obviously, depending on the relief, the size of the project, et cetera, but every bit's going to help. And if these are the goals and the initiatives we set as a council, and we can identify that these are the priorities, you know, when we want to do them, why not incorporate that into our preferred public benefit? So no matter how big or small the relief, when someone comes before the PDC and says, oh, I was thinking about a statue in front of my building, or I'm going to pave the alley, which they'd have to do anyways after they tore it up for their building, and we tell them that's not a public benefit. If these are the things we agree on, could we focus on letting new applicants know that this is the public benefit, whether it's into the fund, so that, as Michelle said, over time, if we're going to do gateway signs, we can do them all at once, and it certainly looks better when they pop up all over town instead of one here and someone says, when do I get mine? The other thing is with regard to the benches, and I don't know if it's been talked about, and forgive me if it has. I know other communities have done it. We've done it on other things. Have we talked about any type of campaign for naming a bench? I know it was talked about years ago with a plaque on it. But for example, my father used to love to walk downtown Highland Park. And when he got sick, a couple of those benches, you know, across the street from where, you know, the pizza places and Dairy Queen were key for him to be able to sit down. And I for one, would love to, you know, see a donation with a plaque with my father's name on it, because that's how much he loved Highland Park. So
We have that now. Yeah, we certainly have that now. So like the
You can do it tomorrow if you want to.
I know we talked about it, but I don't remember where we landed on it. And
Yeah, we do. So like the Lions Club purchased the bench right out City Hall. The Rotary Club purchased the bench.
I will be the first to get a new bench. No problem.
We know where to find you. Thank you. One piece that I think is missing from this conversation, Gita, forgive me if it's at the wrong time, but I thought we were going to talk about bumping out the sidewalks on Second Street. And is that here or is that in the corridor planning portion?
It's a corridor planning. So that would be planned, right?
All righty, then I won't bring that up to confuse the
No,
conversation
that's okay.
further.
That's
But
okay.
it sounds like there is consensus from a majority, if not a unanimity, of everybody concerning seating and garbage cans. And just
tables
working
bike racks.
and working down the low-hanging fruit and seeing what's feasible without breaking the bank.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess I'm so sorry. I just want to be crystal clear just to make sure that we incorporate in this budget. So I've got the trash can, seating, tables, and bike racks. We'll definitely include that. I understand if you know, through grant opportunities, we do have 12,000 from McGovern that's going to be applied to public benefit. So there are these other funding sources that'll help to offset our cost. So we'll try to do as much as we can, but right now we will definitely work as these are the highest priority items, correct?
Okay. Yep. Councilmember Littlewer, you have your hand up?
To clarify, I don't think we mentioned tables unless you're saying that you can't do the seating without the tables. Because that wasn't mentioned at all. And frankly, I would have other priorities like the bike racks before I would put in tables, because I think people can congregate as they are now, unless you're saying that those two have to go.
They
sort of
don't.
like
Yeah, Councilmember Stone mentioned tables specifically, but I do have bike racks. So I have the 4.
Yeah.
I support tables totally. I think tables and chairs. I mean, I think that's kind of essential if you're having seating. I think you need a table.
When you
So there are benches and then there are tables and chairs. And so there are two different types of seating.
Correct. There's a movable seating and tables. That's one set of things. And then there's just seating, which is a different set, Mayor.
Okay.
So
I would be.
Councilmember Tapia?
Yeah, I would be supportive of tables and chairs as well, because you know, people have different needs and they want to do different kinds of activities, and that will give flexibility for our residents.
Okay, we'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. All right. We are moving now to corridor planning proposed initiatives. Yes?
So I'll just introduce again, this was on the agenda for the May 7th workshop. We didn't have a chance to get to the full presentation, but it was included in that packet. And so Director Fontaine just has a very short PowerPoint that just includes the 3 subject areas, a map of the subject area, and our recommendations. And our recommendation would be to add this to our 22 work plan. If there's any other modifications, we seek your feedback.
Hey, take it away, Joel.
I will share my screen then, Mayor. Thank you. Everybody see that? Can everybody see my screen? It just should be,
Yeah, we can see it.
okay, great. Okay,
Just hit the slideshow at the bottom right.
yep. I did, or, okay, so you're not seeing that then, okay.
We're not seeing the slideshow, we're just seeing the.
Hold on, I have to reshare. Shared the wrong screen, hold on. This is what happens when you have 2 screens. Okay. Thank you. Okay, is this better now? It just should be just that main slide, the sub-area planning initiatives 2020.
Yes, looks good. Thank you.
Okay. So Mayor and Council, thank you very much for providing an opportunity to just talk briefly about our sub-area planning initiatives and what we are recommending for 2022. So just to recap, for 2021, we have Crossroads Business District sub-area plan currently underway. We'll be coming to the council in August, Committee of the Whole. And later in the end of the year, finalizing a draft plan for consideration by council. We're also looking to do a set of visioning sessions for Fort Sheridan this summer. And our last sub-area planning initiative for this year is the Laurel, Deerfield, McGovern area zoning. There, you may recall, Laurel Court 2, Mark Mueller's 2 4-story buildings is in that area. And across the street, there's a significant amount of land that's available for development, and that neighborhood and that area around there has been very active in terms of development and interest over the years, and we'd like to see if there's opportunities through zoning to encourage further development. So moving to next year, and what we would like to recommend to put on the major projects list for FY22 is we're looking at the Waukegan and Bloom area. This is the area right up by Highwood. As you can see here, it's zone B1A. There aren't too many districts that are zone B1A in the city. At the time it was zoned that, it was intended to blend in with the Highwood district. Since then, Highwood has done some zoning changes and redid their zoning for their downtown, much like we did for our downtown 2 years prior. They finished theirs at the end of 17. We finished ours in May 15. This area, in terms of the recommendation and purpose of choosing this area, we think that that it makes sense to explore zoning changes to allow mixed-use development at a greater intensity than currently allowed. Transitional commercial zone, it's located between the high-intensity downtown Highwood and a lower-intensity residential district in Highland Park. It serves as kind of a transition point. The zoning, like I mentioned, was aligned years ago, and now we should take a look at it. We're proposing to see how this meets up with not only what Highwood zoning is and what would be appropriate transition at this point, but also now that we have more information about the current needs of the market and perhaps looking forward to additional development that has not really happened. And we do see this as an opportunity to encourage reinvestment through and mixed use and appropriate densities through this zoning consideration. So staff recommends choosing this Waukegan Bloom area to be prioritized for sub-area planning for the city's 2022 major projects. And we also think as part of that, we can consider an evaluation of a TIF for streetscape and other infrastructure to really make it part of a district there that can be vibrant. So those are the two requests for feedback, Mayor, in terms of this particular area for focus next year.
So Joel, I was on the Plan Commission when we looked at a major affordable housing project at the vacant lot at the end. And in response, the neighborhood got very organized and came out numerous times. And I'm basically sharing this for the new members of the council so they can have that context. But there were significant infrastructure improvements that were requested and made to address the needs of the residents in the area. Since then, we haven't really talked, as far as I remember, to the neighborhood and to the neighbors. And I would really urge us to have that conversation as early as possible before we even start recommending anything. For a number of folks, this is their residential street. And I recognize the desire to match up basically with what Highwood has done further north. But I also want us to be very sensitive to the traffic impact and whatever else folks may be thinking and needing as residents, in particular on Bloom. So just want to share that insight and urge us to have some sort of neighborhood meeting sooner rather than later.
Mayor. Absolutely, Mayor. And I'm glad that you brought that up. That is certainly part of what we would do early on in this process. So we do not have, already developed ideas. The idea is to look in on this area since we haven't really seen the reinvestment we'd like to in much of the district. We do right now have a major project from the private sector of 22 townhomes that will be coming before you for consideration. So that does involve that vacant lot that you've spoken of, Mayor, from a while ago that has been vacant for quite some time. So yes, I fully acknowledge and agree with the sensitivities. That would be the first thing they would do, is to have neighborhood outreach and try to talk through what the neighborhood would like to see happen here going forward. So that may or may not lead to changes, as you say, but I do think it's worth asking, and I hope that you and the council agree.
And I just would like to highlight one last piece, and that is that I would like us to be sure that it is the residents and not just the property owners who are
Sure.
notified of that meeting, because it is a lot of rental property, and I think that may impact that street's market, depending on what people are thinking of and what becomes available or doesn't become available, and just sort of whose voices are being heard as we look at moving forward.
Sure. We do have.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. We do have, active neighborhood groups in the area, and we have lots of connections to those folks, and they would certainly be personally invited. In addition to actually inviting those within typically we look at an 800-foot area from the area that we're planning for. That's kind of our standard throughout the city. We've done that for Crossroads and others. So we would be actively seeking participation, both informally and to those folks within 800 feet.
Great. And recognizing that the major organizers from years ago are no longer living in the neighborhood. So just want to make sure that we are connecting with everybody.
Sure.
Council Member Littlewar.
Okay, so I just wanted to say, Mayor, I think that's really important feedback in terms of what happened historically with the neighborhood. But the private developer who has submitted this application to PDC at this point, I was only involved at the very beginning when it was coming forward, and I know Councilmember Stolberg will have updates, as will staff, but it's progressed. I think there's been a lot of community involvement, and I think that this proposal from staff really goes hand in hand with the kind of development and looking to improvement in the area. But I completely concur with you that it's essential that we have input from the neighbors and from all the residents, not just developers and owners. But I think it's a really exciting area for this time. And staff's recommendation, I think, comes at a time since there isn't when we can really serve a population that may be moving in, because with 22 townhomes, apartments. It's going to be very vibrant. It's very family oriented. It's a beautiful, beautiful proposal, and I hope it comes to fruition. So.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Stone.
Thank you. I think you raised some excellent points, Mayor, and agree that we need to take the needs of the neighborhood into consideration and do some neighborhood meetings to discuss this, and hope that we will move forward to figure out a plan for that area of Waukegan. Maybe we ought to be renaming it somehow, because it's not Bloom that we're talking about. It's really Waukegan that we're talking about, perhaps north of Bloom on Waukegan. And that area could use some help. I think I'm the furthest north of the current council, and this is part of my regular walking route. And it's sort of sad to see how it looks currently. So I think it would be great to evaluate it and see whether we could make some improvements that would bring in some businesses that would be serving the community that lives, in this area.
Thank you. Councilmember Tapia.
And this is more in form of a question, that when it's mentioned, let's make sure we talk to the neighbors. It makes a lot of sense, and everybody's nodding their heads. I would also agree that that place seems depressed economically, and, the possibility of revitalizing it is very attractive. So my question is, when we talk about the neighbors and hearing what they have to say, what does that look like? And what's going through my head is, it's one thing to say, oh, I want this, or we want that, or we're concerned about that. But the concern for me is that many times when area gets revitalized economically, we worry about displacement.
Right.
So is that where we go with when that community conversation, is that kind of thing surfaced or addressed?
Yes, that's what I want to have that conversation address. And I know people for a fact who live above some of what are called depressed businesses right now, but they are living there. And so my concern is, let's be really clear what we're doing and how that's impacting families who have lived here for a significant period of time and what that impact is. My view of that map was that it's not just fixing up Waukegan, but that there could be potential zone changes to the east as well as to the south. And maybe I'm misunderstanding the map. But I want us to completely recognize and understand. And I did do this. Go back to there you go. So, if it's the B1A.
It's this area. That's the area, Mayor, the B1A.
Okay. So folks do live in that area, and people may not recognize that. So when we've had meetings in the past, Councilmember Tapia, we've invited everybody. There's been an opportunity to talk about what does this look like and what does this mean and where will people be after something happens. So it is a full bore conversation, not just hey, let's pave the alley and not have it look like a snowstorm every time it rains, which was a great thing that we did. We had a huge flooding issue in this area that we were able to address. But there are a lot of people who may end up displaced. And I think we need to eyes wide open talk about what is meant by fixing this up and who are we impacting. And I don't know how, I haven't seen the new project coming, how many affordable housing units are included in that project. Would there be prioritization for folks who are being impacted? So, we talk a lot about affordable housing, but some of the affordable housing is affordable right now where it is, and we don't want to be displacing people. So that's what I would like to have that conversation include.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Joel.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so just to be clear, just the B1A area is what we're talking about. And as Mayor said, people certainly do live in this area, and that will definitely be a consideration in discussing with the neighborhood more broadly than just in the B1A, of course, to include not just property owners, but people who live in the neighborhood and other key stakeholders in the area. Okay. So let me just get back to where we left off. Okay. So the second area, the second sub-area involves the Ravinia district, and this is focused on the uses permitted or allowed rather in that district. And so what we have here is a map showing the blue outline is the B2RW overlay district. That's the business 2 district. Roger Williams is the RW. That's what that stands for. And we're looking this general area of that, certainly that overlay, to decide and to consider whether or not the uses permitted both conditionally and by right are appropriate for that district, and perhaps maybe there should be more. So here, as I just said, make sure that they're aligned with the desired vision and redevelopment goals for this area. We'll revisit first floor permitted uses and explore allowing additional uses in this area. So that's the focus of this project. It's a tight focus. We've done a lot of planning in this district, as you know, Mayor, and we've made significant reinvestment in the area, as has other property owners. So we have 555 Roger Williams, the Claremont building coming online fully, and we're very excited about that. And so we want to make sure that we have a good mix of uses that are really aligned with our desired vision and redevelopment goals.
Thank you.
We request feedback. We recommend considering amendments to zoning to expand or otherwise change the types of uses permitted in Ravinia. And we also recommend considering an update to the market study to better understand the area's competitiveness in the region. There was a market study done a while back with regard to the Ravinia district planning, and we think that would be a good idea to update that market study generally for the city, but specifically for Ravinia as well.
Are you referencing the CLUE report?
Yes, there's the CLUE report. I know. It's
Okay, so that was when I was on the Plan Commission again, so a long time ago.
correct.
And I'm curious to know if anyone's been in touch with the Ravinia Business District Association.
About
We're seeking policy feedback or
yeah.
we get public feedback on this. But that would be one of the first steps, is meeting with the impacted properties and the surrounding properties as well.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't reached out on any of these, Mayor. These are for council consideration before we begin work. We don't want to, we want the policy feedback from you, and this would be a 2022 major project.
Great, thank you. Okay, Councilmember Littlewer and then Councilmember Holloman.
You're muted.
There, okay. Can we go back to the screen beforehand first, please? Okay, recommendations. So I had a question for you, Joel, and that is, are you suggesting that when we revisit the first floor uses and additional uses, are you suggesting staff and PDC look at those uses as they have for other groups? So that's a question for you, and I have a comment.
Well, as part of our work, we would engage the business community, the RNA, the business district owners. We'd engage a number of stakeholders. We would also seek feedback from the Plan and Design Commission, as we do with our area plans, and we'd report back to council in a committee of a whole session with some feedback and seeking guidance, and then follow up as appropriate with changes, if any. I mean, what we're saying here is we're exploring whether or not we should change first floor use permissions, and exploring whether additional uses should be allowed in this district.
Okay, so now can we go to the next slide?
Sure.
And so along those lines, I think that's wonderful. I love the idea of involving both the business district, the neighborhood association, anyone and everyone on PDC staff that you want to pull in. I do have to say that even though the market study was done a while ago, at this point, if I have my dollars to spend, I'm really not, I think that spending money on that at this point, it is really just too much. I think in the short term, we can listen to, look inside and use our professional staff. But to use that money in the year when there's so many other things we're bringing in, I would really be opposed to that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Holloman?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Annette that working backwards, the market study is not a priority for me. I think we're going to get a lot of information out of the business owners and the people who are in the community who can really inform the decision on that. So I would do a lot of listening and a lot of understanding and this is an area that's been a business district for, 100 something years. I think we should be able to figure out why people are coming there and what they're looking for. I just wanted to give some context to this. When, we have invested heavily in Ravinia, and there's been a lot of, we have an active association and an SSA and things that we've done a lot to try and increase interest in the area. And one thing we didn't do, though, was we didn't look at when we went and kind of recently we lifted the POSO, right? And we eliminated some of the restrictions on some of the things that could go in there, because we recognized that with COVID and even prior to COVID, filling those central business district spots was not, it was a tough sell sometimes. And we did many things to try and encourage businesses to go in that area. But Ravinia didn't have an actual POSO. It has zoning. And so this would allow us, looking at these zoning ideas, would allow us to, or looking at the zoning in this area, would allow us to add some uses to, Ravinia has had first floor offices of many kinds. There's a couple different insurance agencies and things for years. There's doctors' offices, insurance agencies, things like that. And looking back and saying, hey, you know what, can we reconsider some of the prohibitions on those things in this area? Because we need to fill these storefronts with businesses that are going to bring people in. We did it with the pediatrician's office, right? Ravinia Partners, the doctor's office moved out. That used to bring a lot of people to the pharmacy and to Walgreens. So those kinds of uses, this would allow us to look at expanding those kinds of things. And I think that's critical. So I really strongly support this and hope that we can move forward. I realize this is a 2022 plan, but I'm hoping that if people are, I would hope that what we could also recommend is that if businesses are coming to Ravinia, to the city and saying, hey, we'd like to go in Ravinia, we're not a use right now, that staff would maybe come to the council with those, since we are in the process of considering and saying, would we be open to this kind of business in the same way that we did with the brew pub up north? Can we at least get a chance to weigh in a little bit and give some guidance and feedback, so that we're not turning away businesses in the process of going through this process that might not happen until the end of 2022.
Yeah, and Mayor, if I may, I can just respond to that. And what we can do, Councilmember Holloman, is we can communicate with our property owners and the brokers just to remind them that we do in fact do that. So if you have a business use and you look at our zoning and you're like, oh, Highland Park doesn't allow it there, but the business wants to go there, the owner thinks it would be really viable, yes, please come talk to us, because I will coordinate with the city council, coordinate with our staff team, and then we can certainly move forward on those types of initiatives rather than having to wait for a complete corridor plan in 2022 to move forward.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful and great, that if that message got out to staff and, that it's maybe not black and white at this moment in time, that we're willing to, be more flexible with that, and eye towards the future. But I think that would be amazing.
Great, thank you. And we are halfway to 2022, just to let you know. Councilmember Stone.
Thanks. I agree that the market study is not a priority. And I think being flexible in terms of looking at potential additional uses is a good thing to do, although I thought we just did that within the last year or two. So I'm not sure what further changes you're thinking about.
So I don't think we did that in the Ravinia Business District.
Well,
we did that in the Central Business District.
We did an experiential use project, and we adopted code that allowed for additional uses, including in Ravinia, with regard to experiential uses. Ravinia doesn't have a POSO, so it does allow things on the first floor that were otherwise not allowed in the downtown POSO. But what it does require is a lot of uses on the first floor that were at one point deemed maybe not as desirable to get a conditional use permit. And so it's a more arduous process. So it's not that they're not allowed, it's how they're allowed. And in some cases, things are not allowed. That is true. And there's a subset of uses. I will say, while I do think that it's important to be flexible and bring, of course, the city manager and council's attention these things, this is such a heavily planned area that I do think a concerted effort to review the uses with the stakeholders is an important way to approach changing uses in this district. That's why we have a recommendation as we do.
Thank you for the explanation. That makes more sense now.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
I agree with what's been said. Council Hellman pointed out the need to be flexible going forward, and I support that entirely. And I also agree with the comments that we really don't need a market study. And the reason for that is the context. Ravinia isn't that big. And what's going to sustain Ravinia ultimately is its attractiveness to the people that live close to it. The current thinking and planning is why we have increased residential density around our main downtown. When we have residential density around Ravinia, that's the market. That's the primary market. If you're trying to attract hordes of people to come into downtown Ravinia to support something that a market study may consider beyond the immediate needs, I think that's going to be very difficult to support. And I think what people need, what people want is what's going to drive it, and allowing businesses who perceive that need, landlords who perceive the need, is a market that's going to drive itself and hopefully fill things up and make it vibrant in that way.
Thank you. Councilmember Tapia.
And just for the record, I also do not believe that market study is necessary. And, there's nice momentum going on in Ravinia Business District for all the good reasons, things that the city's done, the businesses there. I think they got a good handle on kind of what would be some additional further enhancements that they may want us to consider. So I think listening is the right thing to do. And I think a lot of good things will come out of that.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
we'll move forward, but we will not include the marketing study as part of one of our objectives.
Thank you.
Okay. And finally, Mayor, for 2022, staff is recommending that we look at the Second Street corridor as a sub-area plan, mainly focused on the pedestrian experience along that important street north of Central Avenue and south of Elm Street. So a very distinct area. And here we see that there's an opportunity to look into whether redesigning Second Street from Central Street to Elm Place makes sense to provide expanded pedestrian access, greater opportunities for outdoor dining, and to improve just the overall character of the streetscape. As you well know, there are a number of restaurants on this street. There are some vacancies that could be filled now in Renaissance Place, so there's opportunities. We have Albion 2 that has been approved by council, and we're looking forward to that project coming to fruition. And this would be timed in such a way that, we could benefit from some synergies with that coming online, this being improved. And I know Director Caniparetti has on his plan to redo the Second Street parking lot, and that's part of the capital improvement program. So it really can all come together very nicely in a kind of resetting the table for this area. And so that's our recommendation, to explore this and to try to figure out what might make sense. Part of this exploration, a critical part, will be outreach to property owners and the businesses along that in that district. Of course, that's the first step. And then to kind of come up with some strategies on how to approach improving the pedestrian environment there and the amenities that are provided along that streetscape. We would need to seek the assistance of professional services to engage this project in a serious manner, to have it come to fruition with a plan, Madam Mayor, and design documents and construction documents according to whatever the council approves.
Thanks, Joel. I'll just add quickly, this corridor plan was discussed with a number of property owners. So in the past year, as we had one-on-one conversations with businesses and property owners, as well as had kind of neighborhood district meetings, a number of these initiatives were presented by businesses and property owners asking the city's consideration to do several of these things. So we have had some preliminary conversations. We shared with those businesses and property owners that would be coming to the city council for policy consideration to add this to our work plan. And again, to align with right now in the fiscal year 22 budget is that reconstruction of the Second Street lot.
And I'm delighted to see this on there because this is a street with so much potential. And I think with our assistance, so many restaurants and restaurants to be will really benefit from a newer configuration that really maximizes opportunities for people to eat outdoors, to walk along, and to enjoy the amenities. Councilmember Littlewar and then Councilmember Stone.
I just wanted to say that because the Albion project has come before PDC, has gone so far in its planning and is moving along so beautifully, and so much of the public benefit as far as walkways was considered, and we, so many of the businesses in the area were brought in for Second Street consideration. I think it's wonderful that this is on our radar. I think time for development, but my question was going to be yet again, whether in fact we're asking to bring in private services and contracting out for surveys, or whether this is going in-house and whether this is a matter of meeting with both landlords, the community, the business district, and all the people involved in community groups, or whether again, we're going to spend money to survey it.
Well, Madam Mayor, we do not possess the capabilities to do design and construction documents necessary and sufficient to do any type of construction project like this. And we defer to Public Works on how exactly we go about doing that. But what we have done in the past in Ravinia and other places is we do hire professional services to develop those plans so that we have building permits and construction documents suitable for a capital investment. And so we would need to do that. Surveys would need to be conducted, and that would not be in-house in all likelihood due to the way we structure our capital improvement program, which for all capital improvement programs for the city is generally outsourced those types of services. We don't have an architecture or a division, if you will, for that, or an engineering division that does that work. They oversee projects that are designed by third-party consultants typically. So we would need to do that. As a precursor to any of that work, though, is of course meeting with the businesses and the property owners again. And as the city manager pointed out, there's been talk already about this, and we have some informal kind of outreach that we've done, but we would do that in a more concerted, planned effort in terms of trying to brainstorm what might be appropriate for this street to make those improvements that we're talking about here.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Stone and then Councilmember Tapia.
Thanks. I thought that we had a design for this section of the street as part of the Lakota study that was part of the whole streetscape plan design that we just spoke about. So I'm curious as to why we would do additional work rather than accepting or at least reviewing the recommendations from that. And let me ask one other question to get both out there. In that vein, we just spoke about, I'm excited to see this on here. I think we have work that we could do on this block of Second Street to enhance the vibrancy. But we just spoke about over $2 million worth of streetscape plans from 2016 that still haven't been implemented because we don't have any money to implement them. And now we're talking about doing an additional plan for this section of the street. And I thought we had a plan for this section of the street. So how are we going to pay for this if we do a plan? And can't we use the plan we already have?
Recall my earlier comment. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, we always look to plans we currently have when we're doing our work, but those plans that we currently have are concept plans. Concept plans are really early in, they're very, just that, concepty. To take a concept to design and then to construction documents is a completely different level of engineering and work to do. And so what we will do is we will start with the plans that we have available for ideas on what we could do there, vet them with the current property owners and businesses, as well as the council, and then proceed to design docs and construction docs and bidding and things like that. If everyone is in agreement that that's the plan we in fact want to pursue as opposed to just have as a concept for future consideration, which is what we have right now.
Remember the crossway table thing that we saw? Wasn't that part of it with the raised
It was.
platform in the middle? So maybe no tables and no bike racks. No, just kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, the table intersections were part of it, but not so much for this area right here between these two streets. I mean, we certainly could look at that on either end, but.
Nobody liked that idea. If I
Right.
remember.
I was just going to say, I didn't.
I
think
was
that-
the only one who did.
Okay.
But having said that, we're really trying to look at the
I
car.
like it. Just going on record then.
Yeah.
So you're talking about taking the existing plan that was done and doing construction documents to actually proceed with implementation on this
I would-
block of that design that we have.
I would take the existing plans that we have for ideas, vet the ideas with the stakeholder groups, including the council and committee of the whole, to determine which one we will proceed through to construction documents. So the important part is to reintroduce the planning that we've done, see if there are other ideas about how to approach it, and get consensus on that before coming to council and then saying, hey, this is what business owners and stakeholders think might be appropriate along with staff. We have a portfolio of things we could do. What would we like to pursue? And then we would take that to, further design documents and then construction documents and bid as appropriate, depending on budget and all.
Several steps between what we have and even getting consensus from this council.
That's correct. And then just to be clear, the repaving of the Second Street parking lot is an independent capital project from this project. So that does not in any way get slowed down or speed up by this project. That's on its separate schedule. So I just want to make mention of that.
Do we know, have any of the restaurants requested special use of the right-of-way this summer? As we've done elsewhere in terms of the parking spaces, just as a way to sort of, de facto expand access for seating and tables for restaurants now?
We are continuing to have one-on-one discussions with them in front of Michael's at their request. We modified the 15-minute parking spaces to 3 curbside pickup. And so the concept is people stay in their car and they just get their food out and then they leave. That was at the business's request. And so we're looking at that at other locations as well. But as of this time, we don't have any applications or any serious interest in outdoor dining beyond what they are already doing.
Because I thought we had heard when we were doing the Central Business District walkthrough that nobody was eating inside, that everybody was outside. So I just didn't know if they had sufficient capacity for their clientele and if they had made that request.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Tapia.
Yeah, and this is offered in the spirit of sort of some alternative considerations, a little bit more perhaps experimental, but with the Central Business District being such a central focus for Highland Park, there's a lot of stakeholders, not just the landlords there or whatever residents will be nearby, but it's a lot of people. And people, when they talk about Highland Park's health, many times they refer to the state of downtown, which makes me wonder, as we do listening at the right time, in the right place, the right parameters, is there a way to invite feedback from a broader constituents, which is, across Highland Park, and there's different methodologies to do that. It could be a survey as simple as that, or it could be a World Cafe kind of concept, not making it so wide open that people come up with ideas that are not feasible, but there's ways of getting input from people that we usually would not get input from, since so many people have a vested stake in the health of downtown and its amenities and its restaurants. So I just want to put that out there as we think about who are we listening to, who might get overlooked in the listening tours, and think about this as more of having stakeholders that beyond the neighborhood and more citywide as well.
Yeah, this is an initiative. And again, because, so many people come and visit in the downtown, uptown area. So direct communication would go to property owners within, generally we've done like 400, 500, 800 feet of the subject site. And then we also promote any kind of focus group meetings or, neighborhood meetings in the Highlander and the e-news social media. So even, for example, like we're having an upcoming meeting about redevelopment of the Ravinia Fire Station. Anyone in the community is welcome to come to that. We just sent letters to property owners within 500 feet of that subject site. We haven't done, Councilmember Tapia, you and I have talked about it. So we haven't done targeted outreach, like we specifically want feedback from this type of group. So we certainly could do that, but we just haven't historically done that, but we could look at it.
Yeah, and they're often, overlooked communities, right? It might be communities with disabilities or other people with different socioeconomic incomes, or just they may have other needs that may not be part of the mainstream, but that we want to make sure we have an inclusive design component through and through to make sure we're not overlooking others that may not just be in the bullseye of the groups we're talking with.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
And we did do community outreach for the concept planning we did for our streetscape downtown. There was a number of engagement sessions with regard to various things, but this is certainly something, given the number of years that's gone by since then, it's important to refresh that and make sure that people have an opportunity to take a look in again on this specific kind of a targeted area. That's all I have, Mayor. If there's any other feedback, we certainly welcome that. And thank you for the opportunity to discuss this that you do this evening.
Thank you for bringing these pieces forward. Because I know on May 7th, it was like a little piece of, strategy that we all wanted to be able to provide input to, but we also needed to continue on to stay on schedule. So
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Mayor.
thank you for bringing it to us. Okay, and so with that, I think that is it for open session of the Committee of the Whole. We will be needing to pass a resolution for me to close this out after closed session, if I remember correctly. Gita, is that? We need a motion from this group to allow me to adjourn this session after closed session without the group being together. So I'm seeking that motion.
I would move to allow you to do that.
Thanks. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Will the clerk please call the vote on that?
Councilmember Tapia?
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg?
Yes.
Councilmember Stone?
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg?
Yes.
Councilmember Howman?
Yes.
Councilmember Littlewer?
Aye.
Mayor Rotering?
Aye. 7 ayes, no nays, and that motion is approved. We need a motion to go into closed session, but before we call that motion, I am going to state that we will be taking a 5-minute break between this moment and closed session starting. So now I am seeking a motion to go into closed session for purposes of approving closed session minutes, collective bargaining, and pending litigation.
Mayor, I move to go into closed session for approval of those things pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2 C sub 21, sub 11, and sub 2, respectively.
Second?
Second.
Okay, will the clerk please call that vote?
Councilmember Tapia?
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Stone?
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Howman?
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer?
Aye.
Mayor Rotering?
Aye. 7 ayes, no nays, and we will go into closed session at 7:57. I will see you then.
Do we have a link?
Mhm.
A separate
Should have
link?
received one. Yes. You should
I'll
have received
double
one
check.
via email.
Resend it to you again. I can resend it to you.
Okay. Thank you all. See you soon. See you in 5. Bye-bye.
Bye.